All right, so our lesson is going to end with using our midpoint formula to help us find one of the endpoints if you know the midpoint and an endpoint. So our example, given segment AB with endpoint A and midpoint M, what is the other endpoint B? So because we're given a midpoint in this example, let's see how we can use our midpoint formula. So if we remember, our midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That gives us the x coordinate. And then y1 plus y2 divided by 2 gives us the y coordinate of our midpoint. So what we know right now is one endpoint, point A, we have an x1 and a y1. So we know this number and we know this number. We also know the midpoint. What we don't know though is the other endpoint. We don't know our x2, y2, but we do have enough information to help us solve for it. So first I want to focus on the x's. We know that x1 plus x2 divided by 2 will equal the x coordinate of the midpoint. So let's fill some things in. Well, the x coordinate of the midpoint, I just mentioned it, is that 7 right there. So if you add up the x's of your endpoints, divide by 2, you'll get the x coordinate of your midpoint. All right, we said we know that x1 is a 4, so we can replace this x1 with 4. So we have 4 plus this x2 from our other endpoint that we don't know, divided by 2 equals 7. We can solve for that x2 and find part of our endpoint over here. So do you guys notice we have a fraction? This whole thing is being divided by 2. Easiest step is to multiply by 2 to get out of that fraction. You're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. Now on the left, we are dividing by 2 and we're multiplying by 2. So those are opposite operations. Those actually do reduce to 1. Essentially, we have a 2 divided by 2, and they cancel each other out. If you notice, it did not touch this 4 plus x2. So I'm just going to carry down the 4 plus x2 equals 7 times 2 is 14. Now we can solve for x2 by just subtracting 4. So x2 is equal to 10. So we have half of our endpoint. We found x2. Now to find y2, we're going to follow the same idea. We'll just use the y coordinates. We know that y1 plus y2 from our endpoints divided by 2 will equal the y coordinate of our midpoint. So let me get a little more space here. There we go. So y1 plus y2 divided by 2 will equal this 3, that y coordinate of our midpoint. Now, we mentioned before that we already know what y1 is. That's coming from our first endpoint, so we can go ahead and replace that with a 1. We don't know what y2 is. We're going to solve for that. This gets divided by 2 equals 3. All right, so same idea. We have a fraction. We're dividing by 2, so let's multiply by 2 on both sides. That gets us out of that fraction in our first step. We'll carry down our 1 plus y2 equals 3 times 2 is 6, and now we solve for y2. We'll just subtract 1, and y2 equals 6 minus 1 is 5. So we have x2 is 10, y2 is 5, and x2, y2 is our other endpoint. So the other endpoint of segment AB is a 10, comma, 5, and that is point B.